What's going on with Metroid lately? What was once one of Nintendo's beloved franchises has suddenly gone dark, with new titles to the franchise being few and quite polarizing. But there seems to be hope. In an interview with Reggie Fils-Aimé, he alludes that some notable IP, specifically Metroid, may be seeing a true return to form. And since the Nintendo Switch has been released, does the company have anything in store for our favorite bounty hunter? Well, the answer to that may be a bit complicated. But what else can we take from all this? Since there was no Metroid for the Wii U, will there be a Metroid on the Switch? With that in mind, let's discuss where Metroid is heading. Talking about the Metroid series is actually a bit depressing, so much so that there is this thing known as the Metroid Curse. What the curse is exactly is that even though the Metroid series has been profoundly influential, fathered the Metroidvania genre and all, it somehow does not receive commercial success that matches that, with a few exceptions of course. And this unfortunately has played into relatively recent times, with Metroid Prime 3 Corruption doing fairly well in terms of review scores, but strangely not doing well in terms of sales, despite being on a new and popular console at the time, the Wii, and having such a reputable name behind it. And compare Metroid's sales with other Nintendo IPs such as Mario and Zelda, it's a striking comparison. But the problems don't end there. Personally, what I think is the biggest issue Metroid is facing is the lack of developer consistency. For example, Mario is a series that is dominated by Shigeru Miyamoto. As a result, this gives the series developer consistency, with a clear vision of what the series is and how to expand on it. Same can be said with Zelda. Eiji Aonuma along with the Zelda team have dominated the series since Ocarina. Again, this gives the franchise consistency across all of its titles, along with the innovation that could come with it. But for Metroid, it's just one big roller coaster. At first, Metroid was spearheaded by Nintendo's R&D Division 1, headed up by Gunpei Yokoi. At first, this arrangement worked out well, with Metroid along with Super Metroid being acclaimed installments. However, the first iteration of the Metroid Curse came in. Super Metroid, while being incredibly influential, it unfortunately came out at the end of the Super Nintendo's life cycle, and did not do too well in terms of sales. Things became even more complicated when Gunpei Yokoi unfortunately died in 1997, and the R&D Division 1 team that built Metroid would go defunct. So with that, the Metroid series went under a drought, with many of its original creators retiring or passing away. Essentially what this did is send Metroid into a state of flux, with Nintendo not entirely sure on what to do with it. Sound familiar, huh? Strangely enough, Nintendo would later opt for a third party to develop a Metroid game. And stranger still, gave it to Retro Studios, who at the time was essentially just a new kid on the block. But it worked. Wow, it worked. To this day, Metroid Prime 1 is the best-selling game in the series, which opened up what I call the golden age of Metroid, where we saw a very good formula of 3D Metroid games on consoles and 2D Metroid on handhelds, with a few exceptions of course. But there was a price to all this. Apparently, the development cycle of Metroid Prime 1 was absolutely hellish for Retro Studios, with the director of the game admitting he did not care for the title. Also leading up to the acquisition of Retro Studios by Nintendo, the former president of the studio was replaced and developers faced a pretty harsh development cycle. So much so that many developers who made the Prime trilogy left Retro, with a good portion of them working on other projects, such as Halo 4 and ReCore. And this is where we head to another issue that the Metroid series is running to. Even though there is a lot of public outcry that Retro should go back to working on Metroid games, the fact is, most people who worked on the Prime trilogy are no longer with Retro. In fact, the exodus was complete once Metroid Prime 3 came out. So what did Nintendo do to remedy the situation, since Retro was no longer the same studio that developed the Prime trilogy? they opted to make a Metroid themselves. This led to the development of Other M, with Yoshio Sakamoto along with Team Ninja taking reins. And as many of you probably already know, it is considered the black sheep of the franchise. So as a result, the Metroid series yet again entered a period of flux, with Nintendo not sure on what to do with it. And here comes Metroid Prime Federation Force, spearheaded by Kensuke Tanabe, the producer of the Prime trilogy, along with Next Level Games, entered development kind of strangely. At first, Tanabe wanted to expand on the formula on Metroid Prime Hunters, a DS game, but also wanted to expand on the Federation like in Prime 3. Additionally, Tanabe also wanted to develop for the DSi, but then changed course for the new upcoming 3DS, all the while being relatively unaware of the general fan sentiment towards Metroid since Other M, which was pleading for either a 3D title like the Prime series, or the classic 2D approach. And come E3 2015 when the game was revealed, it had quite the negative response. So much so that Reggie Fils-Aimé acknowledged the reaction. So where the heck does that leave us here? Well, Reggie did say in a recent interview that some notable IPs like Metroid may be seeing a return. But again, what I think the biggest issue Metroid has is the lack of developer consistency. At first, it belonged to R&D Division 1, then Retro Studios, then Sakamoto and Team Ninja, and finally Next Level, and who knows what's next after that. What I personally recommend for Nintendo is first find a dedicated team to handle the Metroid series, like what they do for both Mario and Zelda, and go from there. Preferably a Western team, as Metroid is actually more popular in the West rather than Japan. Maybe take in developers who developed fan games. I mean, just look at Sonic Mania, which the guy known as Christian Whitehead is working on. He started out working on fan games when the Sonic team saw his talents and brought him on board. Speaking of which, there is a certain fan game that has a certain talented developer that Nintendo could very well take under their wing. But nope, DMC takedown for you. So again, where does that leave us? Will there be a Metroid on the Switch? I personally believe so, but I am not entirely sure when. Since Federation Force and Other M, Nintendo may just be re-evaluating what they should do for the Metroid series. In other words, they will probably take their time with it. Will Metroid be at E3 2017, which is around the corner? Honestly, it's anyone's guess at this point. Personally, as a fan, I would like to see it happen. But looking at Metroid's past history, I have my doubts. But who knows, I may be completely wrong and Nintendo will just pull a 180 and reveal a brand new Metroid at E3, one that actually gets the community excited. And maybe this title, which I'm calling Metroid Switch, will be commercially successful, considering how well the Switch is selling after all. So what do you guys think? Will a new Metroid be revealed at this E3? Or are we in a brand new Metroid drought? Let me know your thoughts. Well then, that was a bit depressing, but I do have something for you guys. Personally, I love the Metroidvania genre, and recently I picked up a new game known as Hollow Knight. And my god, this is what I call a video game. If you like Super Metroid, then you will love this. And no, this is not a product placement, I just genuinely adore this game. It has isolation, exploration, fluid gameplay, and a really deep backstory. If you guys really want to satisfy your Metroid urges, then I would highly recommend giving this one a shot. Who knows, maybe Nintendo should get these guys over at Team Cherry to work on a Metroid. And apparently Hollow Knight is coming on a Switch soon. So, who knows. So again, where does that leave us here? Well, remember when I said that I was done with Zelda theories for the time being? Well, apparently there's just one more thing I want to talk about in Breath of the Wild, and it's a bit eye-opening. So, see you guys this Saturday for a new Zelda theory, I suppose. Special thanks goes to our Patreon producers, Dom, Ghost of Muku, First, and Commonwealth Realm. Well, looks like I have to be heading out now. Have a great and wonderful rest of the day, and take care.